the docks that we just pulled away from, this is considered David Yulee's New Fernandina. He came here between 1832 and 1852 and built a brand new town right here, fashioned after New York City. So we have alphabetical streets and numbered streets. And he was a railroad man. He built the railroad that you guys crossed over to get on the boat. We're heading for our little port of Fernandina right up here. This is our last shrimp processing center over here on the right, and one of our local boats, the Miss Hope. We're down to about 8 shrimp boats now. At one point in time, at the height of operation, we had over 160 running out here. 5 of these shrimp processing centers, a blue crab processing center, and an oyster processing center. And it's those foreign farm-raised shrimp that have been flooding the market since the 1980s that have led to the big decline in wild caught shrimp. I'm doing some fishing up under the docks for flounder. They love structure and shadows. So this is our tiny little port here. We only handle about 150 freighters a year. The main ship that runs in and out of here every 10 days is called the Summer's Isle. And it is the lifeline to Bermuda. Anything and everything comes out of here. Like Christmas trees in November, to Bermuda shorts, Bermuda triangles, you name it. School buses, cars, cement mixers, that boat will run up there eventually. The sister ship is called the Formosa. It runs in and out of New Jersey. This is not the ugliest water slide park you ever did see. It's one of our 2 paper mills. We like to say that Fernandina is a beautiful little town nestled between 2 majestic paper mills. They are the 2nd largest employer in the county besides the county itself. So these guys make paper boxes for Amazon, and they're going full guns. They can't make enough paper boxes for Amazon. And my wife has that Amazon Prime. She's looking at her phone at night, sneezes, presses 3 buttons, and 14 boxes show up the next day. If you guys are standing up, we got a little bit of wait. Somebody have a question? If there's questions, just oh, okay, all right. black pipe, looked like sweet tea. It was basically turpentine, and they spoiled the waters here. But when the Clean Water Act came out in 1968, the EPA had these guys begin cleaning up their act, and nowadays we got live oysters going right over here. The fish have returned, the dolphin have returned, all the shorebirds have returned. We see guys fishing right now by the outflow pipe nowadays. The only thing that comes out of that black pipe that the pelicans paint white for us overnight is 90-degree fresh water, and that's the stinkiest thing at the mill. We get a whiff of it, and we get away from it as quick as we can. We call that our manatee jacuzzi. When the water heats up to 73 degrees, and the manatee move through this area, they stop there, drink that warm water, warm up their bones, and move on up into Georgia. Oyster-covered boxes that are up here on the shoreline. They call that a living shoreline. And sometime within the next year, we're going to see about 100 more of them. And they're going to be put in place to create this new living shoreline right through here. And it's supposed to help stop some of the erosion that occurs in this area. We're right at dead low tide, and that bank has been eroding for pretty much ever. But that will help out with that erosion somewhat, create a living shoreline in there for waterfowl and all kinds of fish, you name it. This is our original town of Fernandina that's right up here on the hill. The big green house with a copper widow's walk is a Bell Brothers house. That was, they were fairly famous harbor pilots in town, and some of you guys may know it as the Villa Villa Pula. It was used in the best movie ever filmed here in Fernandina Beach, called The New Adventures of Pippi Longstockings, way back in 1989. It was painted white at the time. The plaza in front of it is called the Plaza San Carlos. It's a little state park, as well as the shoreline down here. This is where the original peoples lived, right up here on this bluff. They were called the Timucua, or the Timucuan, or the Timucua, however you want to say it. And they lived here anywhere from 2,000 to 8,000 years ago, all the way up to right about 1650. Unfortunately, the diseases that the Spanish brought over with them kind of wiped them out. They disappeared before the 1700s. But this is the last Spanish-native town to go on the rolls in Madrid, Spain in 1811, as Fernandina, which is the female version of Ferdinand after King Ferdinand. Amelia Island was named after Princess Amelia, King George's daughter from England. To get out to any of this area, you just come out North 14th Street, and all of this area is past Atlantic Avenue on 14th Street. I'm sorry, Jasmine Street and Atlantic Avenue, set of waterworks, and it's a tidal creek from there. Ashley Michelle is one of our local shrimp boats. Most of her catch goes over to the Grayfield Inn, and the other half of the catch goes up to New York for high-end hotel up there. The net's hanging in the back here. We developed right here in Fernandina in 1913 by Corcoran Brothers, the Corcoran Brothers. Baseball, NHL, hockey stadiums, and also 70 flagship is owned by the state of Georgia, and it's going to become an artificial reef off Brunswick sometime in the next year or so. You see the big old holes on the port side. We took everything nasty for the environment out of it. Cheapest forming entertainment on the island right here. D. Bartel boat launch ramp. Come down here in the evening or the morning and you get to watch pickup trucks become submarines, boats. Georgia, y'all. Welcome home if you're from Georgia. This is one of your newest national parks. It's called Cumberland Island National Seashore. I'll pull straight away for us. There's one right over here about 11 o'clock. See if there's some of those sea oats. There's about 200 wild horses on the island. A couple more down here. We'll check them out. Sure. We always like to point out the first one in case somebody doesn't know what a horse looks like. If you did a DNA sampling of these horses, you'd only find about a 4 to 7% bloodline from the Spanish horses that were brought here in 1565 when the Spanish came. Those horses were a little bit larger than a Shetland pony. It basically was a numbers game. The boats were small, and so the horses needed to be small to take up less space. They hung them in cradles underneath the deck, canvas cradles, and underneath the horses were pigs and chickens to clean up the mess. And so those three animals are not native to the Americas: horses, pigs, and chickens. And another one down here. We'll work our way south a little bit. A couple more down here. See these guys. So Cumberland Island became a national park way back in 1972 through the graces of some really rich folks with names like the Carnegies, or if you're from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Scottish Carnegie. That was the Thomas Carnegie branch for the family. He's the younger brother of Andrew and Thomas Carnegie. And then the Candler family from Atlanta, Georgia. They had this little soda pop company called Coca-Cola at one point in time. And they bought onto the island right after the Civil War. They basically owned the north end of that island. A little town up there called Baramaki. There wasn't much more than a hotel and some hunting lodges. And they still own property on the island. The last family is the Rockefellers from Cleveland, Ohio. They married into the Carnegie family in 1926. Lucy Coleman Carnegie, who is the wife of Thomas Carnegie, forbid any of the 9 children from dating any of the Rockefellers. So you'll have to come on to one of our other cruises to learn that whole story. But after she died, it only took 10 years. And A.J. Rockefeller married Nancy Carnegie. They have about 40 acres and 10 homes about 4 miles from here. full-time caretaker. As I mentioned, there's about 200 horses on the island. The National Park Service does nothing for, with, or against these horses. They don't feed them, they don't care for them medically, they don't inoculate them, they're not shoed. These are wild horses. They're full size, anywhere from 14 to 16 hands tall, from 12 to 1,600 pounds. And their average life expectancy is basically 15 to 20 years. What they're eating is what kind of keeps their life expectancy low. What they're eating up there is Spartina grass and a little bit of sea oats as well. But the Spartina grass is loaded with salt, and horses love salt. They can't get enough of it. And so no one says lay off the salt. The naturalists say it's kind of like us eating bushels of French fries every single day. And so if you ate bushels of French fries every single day, imagine how long you'd live. So they live about a third less than a horse in captivity. Unlike the horses in Assateague, Chincoteague, and Ocracoke, where man's intervened and fed the horses, cared for them, all that kind of thing. Those horses live 30 to 35 years, and they overpopulate the islands there. So the second week in July, they round up a whole bunch of them, and they swim them off of those islands. It's a pretty cool little event. They auction them off for their emergency services, fire department and EMS up there, and that way they don't overeat the food source out there and overpopulate the islands. They end up exploding, unfortunately. But there's never been more than 250 out here since 1972, and never fewer than 150. The first foal was born last week, so pretty amazing to see these guys. If you come over there is Morocco and Portugal and Spain. Directly across. We're going to turn our bow over to a couple of modern day lighthouses. fort flint from the wrong end of the gamut. Construction started out here in 1847, 2 years after Florida became a state. They decided to protect this inlet, and you can see the light being so nice, there's two different color bricks, a larger, lighter colored brick at the bottom and a smaller, darker colored brick at the top. Where those two meet tells you when the start of the Civil War was. The best thing about this fort is it's never been completed and nothing ever happened here. Not a gosh darn thing. Literally not a shot fired from it, not a shot fired at it. The guns that are up there are replica guns. Our original guns were taken by high school rivals during a Friday night football game. No, during World War II. During World War II, used as scrap metal. Those are replicas of Rodman.